discussion in the sustainability module, and I'm really pleased to be joined by Nicolai Wassman from Novo Nordisk, who's a very renowned global mobility individual. He's spoken at many conferences. I know many of you will have heard or have spoken to Nicolai. And today we're just going to talk a little bit about the global mobility perspective. So Nicolai, thank you so much for joining me to talk today.
Thank you, Paul, and thank you for having me. I'm very excited to talk about this important topic.
Thank you, Nicolai. And perhaps if we could start the conversation, my first question to you is, how seriously do you think global mobility is taking sustainability, and our mindsets changing?
I think it's an evolving state, quite frankly. I think it's clearly a yes, but it's also very, very dependent on from country to country, and also the political sense that you are in the country where you're in, and also where the headquarters is. So because it varies a lot. We know it's high on the agenda in Europe compared to Africa and APAC, but we also see differences on how important it is within European countries. And so it's based out of the agenda generally in the society that the company is in. And within the industries, we also see differences. Some industries definitely have more interest in this area, more focused, that others perhaps also do have. And the size of the company also matters. The bigger the company, perhaps you have already focused on this area, but not saying that small companies do not have. If you're a startup in the environmental space, of course, you will have much more focus on this. So it really depends on a lot of factors, I think. But when I talk with my colleagues and my peers in the mobility industry, I can definitely hear that this is a growing topic for a lot of us that we need to follow and have more interest in and definitely to serve, right? So I would say it's an evolving state, yes.
Fantastic, Nicolai, and that's really positive to hear, that the discussions are being had, and the movement towards sustainability is obviously being taken very seriously by global mobility. It's, if I could ask, what do you feel might be the effect of sustainability going forwards on global mobility policies, on the programs? How do you see that?
I see I see that it will both involve the policies, the way we deliver services, and also the way we work together, actually. So if we break it down, and you know me, I like to be a bit concrete. I see several areas where we will see perhaps an impact. If we take the policies, for instance, it's back in the old days, everything was on paper. Have we gone paperless? Are we providing our information to our customers, to our employees, in virtual, online? Can we do that in every way, so we don't produce the same amount of paper? Have we adopted e-signature in every document that we can within our policy suite? It could be on the immigration papers, it could be on tax papers, it could be rental leasing or service that we're using that's as part of this service delivery that we need to do. It's not everywhere we can, and it's not legally accepted in any countries, but in many countries it actually are. And so why don't we replicate that into our mobility framework? Could we introduce, many of us have looked into flex benefits plan or flexible plans, where we actually won't allow our employees to have much more flexibility in their benefit selection. Could we perhaps offer, as part of this, environmental friendly solutions, where if it's point-based system that you're using in that plan, perhaps you can reserve some of the points to a more environmentally friendly alternative that your supplier provides. Could we, like the airline tickets, airline companies who are actually opting you to just to put aside something for carbon emission friendly, could plant a tree, or a non-profit organization donation? Could we embed that also as part of the flex benefit opting out for the employees? So you get a mobility premium, which is very typical, but you reserve perhaps a fraction of this for something that is for a environmentally friendly solution. Another thing that I've thought about is that perhaps in the D&I agenda, there's a lot of focusing on the language that you're applying in your policies. Because if you want to have it gender neutral, how have we actually reviewed the policies and the guidelines from a sustainability area? How is that used into the policies? And definitely, I could see that is also an angle we could also take that into. And for all of these, and this is just within the policy framework, make sure that we track every initiative that we do, especially the small steps. Make sure that we track so we can see actually what are the effects of these. And if we look into the supply chain, I think there's also different areas where we can do. And the supply chain could be household removal, it could be destination services, it could be culture training, it could be our immigration provider or tax provider. Are they in our supply chain, as I call it? Are they using renewable power in the office locations, in their laptops, to actually measure that they actually, not only in the way we work together, but also in their working area? We cannot detect it, but we can ask for it and hear it. It could be that someone is already doing this. And again, going over to the paperless, also going into gifts, which is sometimes used, or paper, which is used in many areas, getting around materials or cultural training. If it needs to be physical, is it based on renewable materials or recycled paper? Of course, that is something that we all want to do. Or take it even further. Can we apply e-learnings? Of course, virtual instead of going digital in the sense of here. I think actually digital era is something that we need to have a very clear eye out of this very important situation to become sustainability, because I think that's where the options and the really harvesting of solution lies. And I think that's definitely something that perhaps we need to talk with our IT colleagues a bit more to find out what is happening in this area. If we are going to move up households, and a lot of us have earlier provided furnished accommodations instead of moving actual households. And it doesn't have to be either or, it can be a combination. Why don't we let the selection be up to the employee if it's within the framework that the company was? If there are no furnished accommodations available to you as a service provider, do you ensure that you actually have a backup plan, that you can offer recycling furniture that is in a very good condition? So of course it's available and also to the standard that you want, have agreed with your client. And it could be, again, it doesn't have to be the whole furniture of an accommodation. It could be broken down. So we say, well, let's focus on the kitchen equipment. Let's focus on recycling TVs, because why should we use new of these? There are plenty renewable alternatives that we can use in this area. If we're taking a getting around, are we emphasizing, and that's a bit tying also over to the policies, that perhaps using public transportation even more, or other environmental friendly alternatives that exist on the market? And it could also be that packing information, again, becoming paperless and electronic, or if it cannot be paperless, let's use recycled paper. Warehouse storage is another great example, is the current alternatives where it's based on renewable powers. Where they use hybrid or electric trucks in this area as well? If we go down in very small detail, it could also be on the service department. If that's what you have an agreement with the client to offer, are the cleaning staff using environmentally friendly cleaning products? So I think there's a lot of areas where you can get ideas to what you actually can do. Start small, then grow into bigger. And again, as I said before, for all these initiatives that you can do together with your service provider is make sure that you track the initiatives and see the effect. Finally, I think also the way we work together is an area. When I say work together, we as internal mobility function together with our suppliers, we can also do things. We can make sure that we travel less, of course, quite easy with that when we have the status meetings or we have the regular meetings. We can also perhaps shift that the conferences that are moving to becoming virtual instead of physical. I don't think it's an either or, but the combination have, especially during the pandemic, have really learned us that it is a good alternative that actually can work in hand. I don't think one is better than the other, but it supplements each other. And already there we've done a little effect. But are we also, a lot of us also have been working home, are we actually tracking how many days we in the team and in our, both at the supplier, but also internally, how many days are we actually working from home? Because that often will also have a carbon emission effect because we are just reducing what we need of travel and also impacting the environment there. If you're going for an RFP, and of course that's often used also we know that's the part of the business. Make sure again, paperless, renewable, or recycled paper if that's needed. So I think those are you can do within the policy frame, the policies, the services, and the way we work together.
Oh, thank you, Nicolai. You covered so many bases there, from the global mobility all the way to the provider side. And I loved the collaboration that you're talking about, because I see more and more global mobility thought leaders like yourselves are not just embracing sustainability, but spending time with your providers, with your supply chain, to find out more about what they're doing and educating, and influencing, but not just being draconian and saying you must do certain things and then find out it's not possible. So I like the approach that you and many others are taking on that, and also the tips to start small and paperless and measure and I just concur with what you say. Just measure something. Something may seem very simple, just like energy consumption. If you've got renewables across all of your offices, etc. So these may sound very simple, but they're huge steps to take.
And if you just, I don't know, we have in Novo Nordisk, we are represented in 80 countries, and of course have a number of offices as well. If you just imagine switching from ordinary light bulbs to environmentally friendly, the impact that you have there, it's a little step. But like when you're also in your private home, you don't think of, well, how I just redo my house and build a completely new house. Perhaps you start very, very concrete with your waste management, how you do that, and simply taking step by step. And I think that's really the way you should proceed with it, taking step by step. And we can definitely learn from each other. So some companies may be very ahead in their sustainability agenda, as I would say, like we are in our company, but others may be a bit far ahead, where the suppliers are perhaps more at the front end. And I think that's where we can really learn from each other, that say, but bring the agenda to each other is so important. And since I've been in the consultancy business once, and then I always preferred that be proactive and go to your client and take up the topic. Is the timing now, or is this something that we should perhaps revisit later on, right?
No, I totally agree, Nicolai. And, thank you for what you've shared. But, are there any sort of final thoughts that you can leave everybody with?
It's start tomorrow and start small and start. But what I mean by start tomorrow is bring the topic for your next integration with the client. When you have the next status meeting, say, where are you? Understand where the company are on the ESG agenda. Of course, you could do your preparation. Perhaps if they have an annual report, perhaps check there. If there could be some very valuable hints that you could get there. visit their site, seeing what are their areas. So if you don't know, but if you do know, go into the room and make sure that it's on the agenda and say, what should we do? But also make sure that you're prepared. What are you as a provider doing? So you already are comfortable going to that discussion. It could be that you actually have data. If you have data yourself, start with that, showing that, share that, and say, well, what do you think? Could this be relevant to you? And how do we move this journey together?
That's fantastic. Nicolai, thank you for your time. Thank you for what you shared with everybody today. It's very, very, very welcome for the industry. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul, and look forward to staying in touch. Thank you.